Hey guys, it's the Stick Figure Historian. We're picking up here with episode 11 of our England series. So we left off when Alfred got chased into the swamps by the Vikings, and he and his guys basically spent the whole winter there. Guthrum tried to hunt them out, but his efforts were fruitless, and still the King of Wessex continued to harry him from the marshy island of Athelney. But at last, spring came, and Alfred was done hiding. He sent messengers out to the people of Somerset, Wiltshire, and Hampshire, calling them to assemble at a place called Egbert's Stone. Thousands of men from these provinces responded to the call and rallied to the standard of their king. It was time to face the Viking oppressors, once and for all. The king and his men made a quick 2-day march to a field called Edington. And unfortunately, this is yet another case where a battle's location is lost to us. Historians have tried to figure this one out for a long time, and several sites have been suggested. But interestingly, the most commonly held belief is that this field was in Westbury, near a hill, with yet another white horse etched into the side. Kind of funny, huh? Now, they say this horse was made in the 1660s, supposedly over the top of a cruder sketch that may have existed back in the days of Alfred. So, just like the conjectured site of the Battle of Ashdown, here we have another battleground by a hill with a white horse. Now, Guthrum, of course, had heard of the king's move and rushed to meet him at the fateful field. The Vikings and the defenders formed their legendary shield walls, and the two sides advanced until they clashed together. The Battle of Edington was the most famous battle of Alfred's entire reign, and it was to be a victory. The Saxons smashed through the Viking shield wall, threw them into chaos, and chased them all the long way to Chippenham. Then the men of Wessex surrounded the town, trapping the Vikings inside and keeping any food from coming in. For 2 weeks the Vikings held out, but as we all know, that's a really long time to go without having a cheeseburger, and in the end they were forced to surrender. Guthrum asked for terms, and the Treaty of Wedmore was formed. This marked the beginning of the end of the Vikings' great power in Britain. In the Treaty of Wedmore, Guthrum agreed to give Alfred hostages, go back to East Anglia, and never return to Wessex. Not only this, but the Viking leader also had to be baptized as a Christian. The ceremony was swiftly done, with Alfred acting as godfather for Guthrum. Another way of expressing his new control over the Viking. Now, some people think that Guthrum actually became a Christian at this point, but this is highly unlikely. This was what we call a forced conversion, meaning Guthrum said he was a Christian because he had to, not because he really believed in Jesus. Whatever the case, he was given the new name of Athelstan at the baptism and was appointed to rule East Anglia. And he did keep his promises this time. He marched off to his new kingdom with his army and never came back. Another important aspect of this Treaty of Wedmore is the creation of new boundaries in Britain. The land was effectively split in half. The Vikings ruled over the northeastern portion of land, now known as the Danelaw, and the Saxons ruled over the rest, which included half of Mercia and all of Wessex. At first, the Saxon half of Mercia was ruled over by the puppet king that the Vikings had set up, but eventually he disappeared. No one's quite sure what happened to him, and a new leader, Ethelred, took over. And yes, this is the third Ethelred. Apparently it's a rather popular name among the Saxon nobility. But even after the treaty, it was still a turbulent time for the Mercians, and eventually Ethelred ended up making a deal with the King of Wessex. He married Alfred's daughter, Ethelflaed, and stepped down to rule as a lord under him instead. And in this move, we have the two kingdoms united, and it's the first big step towards creating England as we know it today. Now, Alfred knew that if he wanted to keep all this new land, he was going to have to come up with a plan for defending it. Even though the treaty had been made, he still didn't trust the Vikings not to invade again. They had broken their promises over and over, and he wanted to be ready if or when they returned. First and foremost, he needed to change the way the army worked so that there would always be men on hand to deal with emergencies. Secondly, the cities needed to be fortified. Alfred had a lot of work to do, but he was up to the task.